Hey everyone! Welcome to Turkish series stars. All the behind-the-scenes whispers are right here, so stay with us. Remember to subscribe to Turkish series stars and share this video before we dive in. Thank you so much for being here. Tonight's story has taken over timelines and group chats alike. Alp Navras and his former partner Alina stepped back into the same frame for the first time in ages, and the electricity in that room was impossible to ignore. It wasn't planned. At a sleek private launch in Istanbul, the kind with velvet ropes, discreet security, and carefully curated guest lists, they crossed paths without warning. The moment had that strange hush a crowded place gets when something unspoken ripples through it. According to guests, the stillness lasted only seconds, but the looks that followed spoke much longer than any words could. Witnesses say that from the instant Alp caught sight of Alina, his attention anchored to her like a compass to north. Not in a scene-making way, it was subtler than that. Still, it was obvious enough that people who had no intention of gossiping could not help but notice. One guest whispered later, they walked in separately and kept their cool. But the second Alp realized Alina was there, his face changed. He kept glancing back, trying to read her. She, meanwhile, was poised, polite, and laser-focused on the event. For those who have followed the rise and fall of their romance, the subtext was impossible to ignore. Their relationship, once a rush of warmth and late-night drives, ended quietly last year. Neither gave interviews about the breakup. There were no dramatic statements, no pointed song lyrics, no tell-all posts, only a dignified silence that made everyone wonder what had really gone on between them. Their names, however, kept colliding in the public space. Shared industry circles. The same stylists. Overlapping brand campaigns. A gala here, a premiere there. Even when they were miles apart, their headlines somehow met for coffee. The narrative wrote itself. Two stars with intersecting orbits drawn together by work, by mutual friends, and by a history that neither stoked nor denied. Last night's encounter poured gasoline on that long, whispering fire. Cameras didn't catch them posing together, because they didn't. But they did catch Alp at angles he didn't plan for, the tilt of his head whenever Alina stepped into view, the way his smile flickered and then settled, puzzled, like someone rereading a line from a familiar chapter. In the snapshots that made the rounds online, his expressions alone fed 1,000 captions. Comments swarmed in. Some said, the feelings might fade, but the look never lies. Others countered, two professionals can share a room and keep it professional. The internet loves a definitive answer, last night gave none. Instead it offered the kind of ambiguity that keeps people refreshing their feeds at 3 a.m. Alina's presence set a tone the room seemed to follow. She wore an understated, perfectly cut black dress, nothing ostentatious, nothing loud. Minimal makeup, luminous skin, that serene posture she's known for. Throughout the evening, she greeted people with genuine warmth, declined interviews with a light smile, and stayed focused on the work of being there without making it about herself. If there was a storm inside, it never showed. Alp's energy, by contrast, carried a quiet restlessness. He looked sharp, a classic suit with a daring detail here and there, exactly the polished yet bold style his fans adore. But his eyes kept traveling. He scanned the room often, sometimes as if caught between approaching and stepping back. More than once he seemed to retreat into a memory only he could see, the kind of reverie that makes a person forget they're being watched. And so the evergreen question returned. Was a chapter turning itself back to page 1? Or was this the moment a story finally said goodbye without anyone having to say the words? Their silence only magnified the speculation. Friends of friends were asked for hints. Publicists fielded calls and sent no comment replies. The question hung like perfume, invisible, persistent, and unmistakable. What complicates this all is how their romance began. It didn't start with grand declarations, but with long hours and creative sparks. They first connected on a bustling set where they were scheduled for the same promotional campaign. People on that crew said their ease with each other was instant, an unteachable comfort that made directors joke about how lucky the camera was. Soon, the boundary between the world under the lights and the world after wrap got blurry, and a real relationship emerged. Their pairing became a reference point for the industry, two actors at the height of their craft, matching each other stride for stride, letting the work remain the work while building something quietly beyond it. Their dates weren't parades, they were tucked-away dinners, long drives to nowhere, early breakfasts before call times. They didn't shout. They didn't need to. Even the breakup followed that pattern. No door slams, no accusations, no cryptic quotes. A simple understanding that whatever had been so easy at the start had grown complicated in ways neither wanted to map out in public. They stepped away, offered each other respect, and let the story close where they stood. Or so everyone thought. Which is why last night's breathless pause has the city replaying it in slow motion. Reports from inside the venue describe a moment by the champagne table when Alp's eyes found Alina again and, for a heartbeat, everything else faded. A photographer caught the angle, his gaze lined up with her silhouette reflected in a glass partition. It's the kind of image that makes fans build entire theories. Was he about to walk over? Did he stop himself? Did a friend nudge him? We only know that he stayed in place, that she laughed at something a stylist said, and that the moment dissolved as quickly as it appeared. Some claim this is proof that the flame still flickers. Others argue the opposite, that this was the quiet farewell, the last look that says we're fine, we lived it, we're done. That second camp insists that if a reunion were brewing, there would have been a single photo shared, a casual nod to the rumors, a shared glance in an interview. Instead, there was discipline. Space. The kind of restraint that signals two people who know the weight of what they had and prefer to carry it carefully. But restraint rarely quenches curiosity. The brand behind the event, thrilled with the unplanned exposure, released a carefully worded statement praising the night's extraordinary energy and inspiring guests. No names were mentioned, they didn't need to be. Blogs dissected outfits, timelines, the order of arrivals. Amateur sleuths tracked lighting cues in fan videos, convinced the change in the room's playlist coincided with the instant their paths crossed. Maybe the most revealing details, though, came from small observations. Alina avoided the press area but briefly chatted with a veteran director known to adore her focus. Alp took time with debut actors, giving them a few earnest words about patience and persistence. When an old acquaintance jokingly asked him if the night felt familiar, he grinned and shrugged in that easy way he has, neither confirming nor denying, neither feeding nor starving the rumor mill. Of course, there were friends of both in attendance, and the circles carefully didn't overlap. Whether by design or by chance, they kept respectful distance. The closest they stood, as far as anyone could tell, was across the central atrium, not near enough to brush shoulders, not far enough to pretend the other wasn't there. It was a choreography of boundaries that only people who have loved and learned could execute so smoothly. Across social feeds, fan pages resurrected old clips. A past interview where Alina said she values quiet honesty. A candid where Alp listened like he was reading a secret. Comments poured in beneath every resurfaced memory. If they come back, let it be on their terms, one wrote. Another sighed, maybe some stories are beautiful because they're finished. And tucked among the noise, a quieter voice simply said, I hope they're both okay. The broader industry is buzzing about what this might mean for future projects. If there's one thing last night proved, it's that their chemistry, whatever its current form, still commands attention. Producers love the kind of electricity that can't be forced. Imagine, the whispers say, a thoughtful drama where two characters carry a history much bigger than the script. Imagine the craft in their silences. Imagine the audience holding its breath right along with them. And yet, it's just as possible that the clearest takeaway is closure. An acknowledgement that they can share a room without sharing a storyline. That they can honor what they had by not trying to rewrite it. There is a certain grace in letting a great season end and allowing the reruns to do their work in people's hearts. What no one can debate is how gracefully Alina moved through the night, how centered she seemed, how grounded in her own rhythm. Nor can anyone dispute the sincerity in Alp's distracted smile, that telltale sign of someone trying to be absolutely present in a moment that also belongs to the past. These are small truths in a city that loves big rumors. As the party thinned and the DJ softened the tempo, they left the venue in separate cars, the way they arrived. There were no accidental departures at the same time, no conveniently shared elevator. The night gave the press just enough to keep talking and gave them just enough space to keep breathing. If there was a message in any of it, it was written in restraint. By sunrise, the headlines had taken shape. Some shouted reunion. Some declared finality. The sanest read said only this: they were in the same room again, and the room remembered. Whether that memory becomes a new beginning or a well-kept keepsake remains theirs to decide. What we do know is that they built something real once, and that kind of history rarely disappears without leaving a gentle imprint on everything that follows. Maybe that's why a glance across a crowded launch could feel like a small earthquake. It isn't just about two famous names crossing paths, it's about what they taught everyone watching, that care can outlast togetherness, that respect can be louder than confession, that sometimes the bravest thing two people can do is refrain from making a moment perform for an audience. And so, the city carries on, a little more curious than it was yesterday, wondering if the next premiere, the next awards night, the next campaign will bring another quiet intersection. Until then, the images from last night do their looping dance on our screens, and the story lives in the questions they chose not to answer. That brings us to the end of our video. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to subscribe to Turkish Series Stars and share this episode with friends who follow Alina Boz and Alp Navras as closely as we do. See you in the next one.